My wife perished in a sudden, violent accident. A few days later, the notary handed me the keys to a luxury penthouse, saying simply, "It's in your name now." She had strictly forbidden me from asking about her business trips while she was alive. I planned to sell it immediately, but before doing so, I decided to visit. When I opened the door, I froze in shock. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached on this channel. I never thought I'd be holding keys to a life I didn't know existed." 3 weeks had passed since Iris's funeral, and I was still finding pieces of her scattered throughout our house on Cedar Lane. Her favorite ceramic coffee mug sat unwashed in the sink, a faint, coral lipstick stain on the rim that I couldn't bring myself to scrub away. The morning light filtered through our kitchen window the same way it had for 35 years, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. But everything felt different now, hollow, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for her to walk through the door with that familiar rhythmic clicking of her heels on the hardwood floor. I was 60 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely untethered. The doorbell interrupted my spiral of grief, cutting through the silence that had become my constant, unwanted companion. Through the peephole, I saw Mr. Abernathy, our family attorney, standing on the porch with a thick manila envelope clutched in his weathered, spotted hands. His expression was unusually grave, even for a man who spent his days dealing with the finality of wills and estate planning. "Arthur," he said when I opened the door, his voice carrying that careful, velvety tone people use when they're about to deliver news you're not prepared for. "I have something that belonged to Iris, something she specifically requested I give to you only after the funeral arrangements were complete." I led him to the living room, the same space where Iris and I had shared countless evenings watching the news, arguing gently about what to have for dinner, and planning vacations we never quite managed to take. The leather couch still held the slight indentation where she always sat, curled up with her legs tucked under her, reading those historical romance novels she claimed were just mindless mental candy. Mr. Abernathy settled into the armchair across from me, the envelope resting on his lap like it contained unexploded ordnance. "Iris came to see me about 6 months ago," he began, his fingers drumming nervously against the paper. "She updated her will, but she also left specific instructions about certain assets that weren't included in the main document." My heart started beating faster, a drum against my ribs. In 35 years of marriage, Iris had never hidden anything significant from me. We shared everything: bank accounts, investment decisions, even the password to her email. She was meticulous about transparency, always saying that secrets were the termite infestation of any good marriage. "What kind of assets?" I asked, my mouth suddenly sandpaper dry. Mr. Abernathy opened the envelope and pulled out a set of keys. They were silver, modern-looking, attached to a small rectangular fob with an address printed in neat black letters: Metropolitan Heights, Unit 402. Below the address, in Iris's careful, looping handwriting, were the words, "For Arthur, I'm sorry." I stared at the keys, my mind struggling to process the metal sitting in his palm. "I don't understand. What is this place?" "It's a luxury apartment downtown," Mr. Abernathy said, his voice gentle but measured. "Iris purchased it 8 years ago. The deed is in her name, but according to her instructions, ownership transfers to you immediately upon her death. No probate, no waiting period. It's yours now." 8 years. For 8 years, my wife had owned property I knew nothing about. The woman who couldn't keep a surprise birthday party secret for more than 3 days had somehow managed to hide an entire luxury apartment from me for nearly a decade. "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper, a ghost of a question. "Why would she hide this from me?" Mr. Abernathy shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I asked her the same question when she first came to me about the purchase. She said it was connected to her business trips, that she needed a place to stay when she was working late in the city. She was very specific about one thing, though." He paused, his gray eyes meeting mine with sympathy. She made me promise never to mention it to you while she was alive. Said you weren't supposed to ask about her work travels, that it was better for everyone if certain things stayed private. The business trips, of course. For 15 years, Iris had taken regular trips to the city, sometimes once a month, sometimes more frequently. She always said they were for her cons. Ulting work, helping small businesses with their accounting systems. When I try to ask for details about her clients, or what exactly she did during these trips, she'd get defensive, claiming I was being controlling and that she needed some independence in our marriage. I'd learned to stop asking to keep the peace. The apartment is fully furnished, Mr. Abernathy continued, pulling a folder from his briefcase. Property taxes are current. Utilities are set up for automatic payment from an account Iris maintained separately. She left instructions that you should visit the property before making any decisions about selling it. I took the folder with trembling hands. Inside were property documents, utility bills, even what looked like a floor plan. Everything was meticulously organized, just like Iris always kept her paperwork. But seeing her handwriting on documents I'd never known existed felt like discovering love letters written to a stranger. "There's something else," Mr. Abernathy said, his voice dropping even lower. "Iris specifically requested that you go to the apartment alone the first time. She said there might be things there that would require privacy to process properly." Things that would require privacy. What could be in that apartment that I couldn't share with our closest friends? What had my wife been hiding that was so sensitive it required complete secrecy? After Mr. Abernathy left, I sat in my kitchen holding those silver keys, turning them over and over in my palm. The metal was warm now from my touch, but they felt foreign, like artifacts from someone else's life. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Higgins next door watering her hydrangeas, living her normal Thursday afternoon. While my entire world shifted on its axis, I thought about the last conversation I'd had with Iris just 2 days before the accident. She'd been sitting at this same kitchen table, sorting through her mail with that focused concentration she brought to everything. I'd mentioned that we should start planning a vacation for my upcoming retirement. Maybe finally take that trip to Ireland we'd always talked about. She looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read at the time, something between deep sadness and relief. "Arthur," she'd said, her voice unusually soft, "there are things about my life that you don't know, things I've been meaning to tell you." Before I could ask what she meant, her phone had rung, one of those work calls that always seem to interrupt our important conversations. She stepped into her home office, closing the door behind her, and when she came out 20 minutes later, she was rushing around gathering her purse and car keys. "Rain check on that conversation," she'd said, kissing my cheek before heading out the door. "We'll talk when I get back from the city tomorrow." She never made it back from the city. The accident happened on Highway 91, just 15 minutes from downtown. The police said a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel and crossed the median. Iris died instantly, they assured me, as if that somehow made the loss easier to bear. Her car was totaled, her purse scattered across the asphalt, but somehow her phone had survived intact in the glove compartment. When I'd gone through it later, looking for contact information for her work colleagues, I'd found something strange. The last number she'd called wasn't her office or any client I recognized. It was a residential number with a local area code, saved in her contacts under a single initial, J. I'd never called that number. Part of me hadn't wanted to know who J was, afraid that learning more about Iris's secret life would somehow diminish the memories we'd built together. But now, holding these keys to an apartment I'd never known existed, I realized I'd been a fool to think I could preserve our marriage by choosing ignorance. The drive downtown took 40 minutes through traffic that seemed heavier than usual. Metropolitan Heights was one of those modern high-rise buildings that had sprung up in the business district over the past decade, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky like fingers trying to touch something beyond reach. The lobby was pristine, with marble floors that reflected the light from crystal chandeliers and a doorman who nodded politely as I approached. "I'm here to visit Unit 402, I said, my voice catching slightly. He checked his computer screen, then looked up with a professional smile. "Of course, Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Iris said you'd be coming by. The elevators are just to your right." Mrs. Iris, not Mrs. Bennett. Not even Mrs. Iris Bennett, just Mrs. Iris, like she was someone completely separate from our shared life, someone with her own identity that had nothing to do with being my wife. The elevator ride to the fourth floor felt like it lasted forever. My reflection stared back at me from the polished steel doors, and I barely recognized the man looking back. When had I gotten so gray? When had those lines around my eyes become so deep? Iris had always said I was aging well, that I looked distinguished. But standing there in that rising metal box, I felt every one of my 60 years. Unit 402 was at the end of a long hallway carpeted in deep charcoal. I stood in front of the door for what felt like an eternity, the keys growing slick with sweat in my palm. Whatever was behind this door would change everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my wife, about myself. I slid the key into the lock. The apartment was beautiful in a way that felt completely foreign to our modest home on Cedar Lane. Floor to ceiling, windows offered a stunning view of the city skyline, and the afternoon sun cast everything in a warm golden glow. The furniture was modern but comfortable, with soft cream couches and contemporary artwork that Iris had never shown any interest in when we'd shopped for our own home. But it was the sound that stopped me cold. Music was playing softly from somewhere deeper in the apartment, a jazz song I recognized but couldn't name, and underneath the music I could hear movement, the soft whisper of someone walking across hardwood floors, the gentle clink of dishes being moved in what I assumed was the kitchen. Someone was here. Someone was living in my dead wife's secret apartment. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracking with uncertainty. The sound stopped immediately, followed by a moment of absolute silence that made my heart pound so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then footsteps approached, quick and light, and a young woman appeared in the doorway that led to what looked like the kitchen area. She was maybe 30 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, and Iris's distinct hazel eyes staring back at me with a mixture of surprise and something else I couldn't identify, recognition, maybe, or relief. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, but around her neck was a necklace I recognized immediately, a small silver locket that had belonged to Iris's grandmother, one she'd claimed was lost years ago. The young woman looked at me for a long moment, her hand moving unconsciously to touch the locket at her throat. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but steady, with an accent that reminded me of Iris's own careful pronunciation. "You must be Arthur," she said, taking a tentative step forward. "Mom said you'd come eventually." She paused, her hazel eyes filling with tears. "I'm Maya, I'm your daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow. I grabbed the back of the nearest chair to steady myself, my mind reeling. "Daddy," she whispered, and in that single word I heard 32 years of longing. "Maya," she said her name was Maya, and she was looking at me with Iris's eyes, waiting for a response I couldn't give. The late afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows suddenly felt too bright, exposing secrets that were never meant to see daylight. "I know this is a shock," Maya said, her voice gentle but steady. "Mom told me you didn't know about me. She said it was complicated, that she'd explain everything to you when the time was right." My legs felt weak and I sank into the cream couch behind me. "When the time was right," I repeated, my voice hollow. "She's been dead for 3 weeks, Maya. When exactly was she planning to tell me I had a daughter?" Maya sat in the chair across from me, maintaining a careful distance. "She was going to tell you soon. She'd been talking about it more and more, especially after your birthday last month. She said you deserved to know the truth before you retired." My 60th birthday. Iris had been unusually sentimental, holding me close. I thought she was just emotional about me getting older. How old are you? I asked. 32. I was born in October of 1992. I did the math. Iris and I had been married for 2 years by then. We'd been trying to have children, struggling with fertility. She'd been devastated each month when the tests were negative, crying in my arms, all while she was already someone's mother. Who is your father? I asked, the question harsh. Maya's expression shifted. His name is Julian Thorne. Mom met him before she married you, but she thought he wasn't ready to settle down. When she found out she was pregnant, she said she didn't want to trap him. So she married me instead, I said, the bitter truth settling in my chest like a stone. Because I was safe, because I would provide. No, Maya said quickly. Mom loved you, Arthur. She really did. She said you were the kindest man she'd ever known, that you would have been an amazing father if circumstances had been different. Where have you been all these years? I asked. Maya stood up and retrieved a photograph in a silver frame. It showed Iris, younger and happier, sitting on a park bench with a young Maya. I lived with my adoptive parents until I was 18. Mom arranged for me to be placed with a family in Chicago, but she visited when she could. Those business trips, some of them were to see me. After I turned 18, she helped me get into college, helped me find this apartment. She wanted to make up for the lost years. What do you do for work? I'm a graphic designer. Mom was proud that I found a creative career. I set the photograph down. In 35 years, Iris had never expressed interest in creative fields, but apparently she'd been proud of Maya. Arthur, Maya said softly, there's something else. She disappeared into the bedroom and returned with a worn cardboard box. Mom left this for you. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should give it to you. Inside were dozens of letters, some addressed to Maya, others to Julian, and a stack for me. I picked up one addressed to Maya from 3 years ago. My darling Maya, I promise the day will come soon when you meet Arthur. He doesn't know about you, and I've been a coward. I tell myself I'm protecting him, but I'm protecting myself. I'm afraid if he knows about Julian, about you, he'll leave me. I looked up at Maya. She loved you, Maya said quietly. She was just scared of losing you. I picked up a letter addressed to me, dated 2 months ago. Arthur, if you're reading this, it means I finally found the courage to tell you the truth. I have a daughter. Her name is Maya, and she is wonderful. I should have told you from the beginning. I chose to lie instead of trust. And now I'm 60, and I don't know how to undo 35 years of deception without destroying everything I love. There are more, Maya said. Letters she wrote but never sent. I spent the night at Maya's apartment, sleeping fitfully on the gray couch. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Iris's handwriting. When I woke up, Maya was making coffee. How long have you been living here? I asked. About 4 years. Mom helped me find this place. Maya, I need you to be honest. Did your mother ever tell you she was going to leave me? Maya went pale. She hesitated, then handed me a letter from 3 months ago. My dearest Maya, I've been thinking about the future. Arthur deserves a wife who can love him without secrets. Julian called last week. He's divorced now. He asked if I ever thought about what our life could have been. I'm thinking about telling Arthur everything when he turns 60. That gives me 4 months to prepare him. The letter slipped from my fingers. She hadn't just hidden a daughter. She'd been planning to leave me for Julian Thorne. There's more, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. Letters where she feels guilty. Did she love me at all? I asked, my voice cracking. She did love you, Arthur, just differently. She loved him first. My phone buzzed with a text message. The number wasn't in my contacts, but the message made my blood run cold. Arthur Bennett. This is Julian Thorne. We need to talk. I know about the apartment and I know about Maya. Iris promised me certain things before she died. Meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Miller's Diner. Julian Thorne. The man Iris had loved first. the father Maya had never known. I arrived at Miller's Diner 15 minutes early, choosing a booth in the back corner. At exactly 2:00 p.m. the door chimed. Julian Thorne was nothing like I'd expected. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair and clothes that managed to look both expensive and carelessly worn. He had an artist's confidence, a swagger that I lacked. "Arthur Bennett," Julian said, sliding into the booth without invitation. "You're younger than I expected." "What do you want, Julian?" I asked, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "I want what Iris promised me. She made legal arrangements, financial commitments. She was planning to divorce you and marry me, and she set things up to make sure that could happen smoothly. Iris is dead. Her promises died with her." "Not all of them." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "Life insurance policies with me as the beneficiary, investment accounts, and the apartment where Maya lives. Nearly $600,000. My vision blurred. Money that should have been part of our retirement diverted to another man. "I don't believe you." He spread the documents out. She was systematic, started small. "Sarah, Maya needs a real father. I'll give you 1 week to contest this legally. But when you lose, I want you to walk away from Maya's life." "Maya gets to choose," I said firmly. "When she sees what a real father can offer, we know what choice she'll make." He stood up, tossing a bill on the table. 1 week, Arthur. Contest it and lose or accept reality." I drove back to the apartment, my mind racing. Something didn't add up. If Iris was so systematic, why were her letters so torn? Why the guilt? "Maya," I said when I returned, "we need to look at the letters again. Julian claims he's entitled to everything." We went through the box for hours. Finally, Maya found a letter dated 6 months ago. "Julian has been asking a lot of questions about our finances lately, about the apartment insurance policies. He suggested I change my will. I'm starting to wonder if I've been a fool. What if Julian doesn't really love me? What if he just wants the money?" "Look at this one," Maya said, handing me a letter from just 6 weeks before the accident. I told Julian about Arthur's retirement account. He wanted to know if we could access it in a divorce settlement. He got angry when I refused. That's when I realized Julian doesn't just want me. He wants the security I can provide. And finally, a letter from 1 week before she died. "Arthur, if you're reading this, I've finally found the courage. I have a daughter, but I also need you to know that I've changed my mind about leaving you for Julian. I realized that what I thought was love was just nostalgia. Julian wants money. You have loved me for 35 years. I want to try to save our marriage. I'm going to cut all contact with Julian. I've already begun the process of changing the insurance policies back to your name." She had chosen me. In the end, she had chosen me. The policies Julian showed me, they might be fake, I realized, or old versions she revoked. I called Mr. Abernathy immediately. "David," I said, "I need to know about the beneficiaries on the insurance policies." "Arthur," Mr. Abernathy said after checking his files, "I reviewed everything 6 months ago. There are no policies naming anyone other than you. Iris specifically told me she wanted to ensure her husband inherited everything. She canceled a request to change beneficiaries just weeks ago." Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. "Send a letter to Julian Thorne. Tell him he has no legal claim, and if he harasses us again, we will sue for fraud." I hung up and looked at Maya, who was making dinner. "It's over. The documents were fake or outdated. He gets nothing." "What happens now?" she asked, sitting across from me. "Do you want me to leave?" "I want a family," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I want to know you. I want to know your favorite movies, your dreams. I want to be the father I would have been if I'd been given the chance." Maya smiled, a genuine, bright expression. "I want that too, but Arthur, I don't want you to feel obligated." I choose this." 3 months later, I stood in the living room of my new apartment, just 6 blocks away from Maya's building. I had sold the house on Cedar Lane, too many ghosts, too many shadows of lies. This new place was smaller, but it felt lighter. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Maya holding a box of pastries. "Happy Father's Day," she said, stepping inside. "It's not official yet," I laughed, though my heart swelled. "Yes, it is." She handed me a manila envelope. "The adoption papers came through. It's official. You're my dad." She also handed me a folder with financial projections. "I want to talk about the money from Mom. I want you to put $400,000 into your retirement accounts. I don't need it right now. I want a dad who isn't stressed about money." "Maya, I can't accept that." "Yes, you can, but on one condition. We take that trip to Ireland." "Deal," I said, tears stinging my eyes. Later that afternoon, we sat at a small cafe near her apartment. I looked at my daughter, my legal, official daughter. "I forgive her," I said suddenly. "I forgive your mother, because if she hadn't made those mistakes, if she hadn't kept those secrets, I wouldn't have you." I thought about how strange grief is. It hollows you out, scrapes you clean, leaving a void that feels impossible to fill. But sometimes, life plants a seed in that empty space. A seed that grows into a relationship you never expected, a love you didn't know you needed. Standing there, tracing the rim of my coffee cup, I realized I wasn't just surviving Iris's death anymore. I was living a life she had inadvertently given me. A life with truth, with Maya, and with a future that finally felt like my own. "Thank you for choosing me," Maya said, squeezing my hand. "Thank you for choosing me back," I replied. Outside, the city moved on. Julian was somewhere out there with his bitterness and his scams. But inside, we were planning a trip to Ireland, a father and daughter building a future on the honest ruins of the past. It was a beginning I never saw coming, but one I was infinitely grateful for.